The sun hung low over the Pyramids of Giza, casting long golden shadows across the sands. Ahmed, an aged historian with a limp, spent his days exploring the desert at twilight, searching for secrets that had eluded time. Locals called him the Watcher, a name born of his habit of wandering alone, his eyes scanning the horizon as though waiting for something. That evening, the desert was eerily silent. The usual winds were absent, and the air felt thick, charged. Ahmed paused, gripping his walking stick tightly as he gazed toward the horizon. The fading sunlight bathed the Great Pyramid in a fiery glow, but something else caught his eye, a faint glimmer in the sky. At first, it seemed like a star misplaced in daylight, but it grew larger and brighter, descending smoothly in an arc. The object was unlike anything Ahmed had ever seen. Shaped like a perfect disk, it hovered silently, its metallic surface shimmering with an other-worldly light. Strange symbols, glowing faintly, adorned its edges, neither hieroglyphs nor any script he recognized. Ahmed's heart raced as the craft came to a halt above the Great Pyramid. A beam of bluish light erupted from the craft, enveloping the pyramid's peak. The beam pulsed rhythmically, as if scanning the structure. Ahmed staggered backward, his mind racing. He had always dismissed the tales of extraterrestrial connections to Egypt's ancient wonders, but this sight was undeniable. The hum in the air resonated in his chest, as though the very earth vibrated with the UFO's presence. Abruptly, the beam retracted, and Ahmed thought the encounter was over. But then the craft released something, a small object that tumbled gracefully through the air before landing softly in the sand nearby. The UFO lingered for a moment, as if ensuring its delivery, then vanished into the sky with breathtaking speed. Ahmed stood frozen, his thoughts a chaotic swirl of disbelief and fear. Slowly, he approached the object. It was a cube, no larger than his hand, glowing faintly with the same markings as the craft. When he reached out to touch it, the cube grew warm under his fingers, as if alive. Suddenly, a flood of visions filled Ahmed's mind. He saw towering cities of crystal and metal, alien landscapes bathed in unfamiliar light, and beings that resembled both man and beast. The pyramids appeared again and again, their presence central to the images. It was as if they were a bridge, connecting Earth to a vast cosmic network. Ahmed collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. When the vision subsided, he clutched the cube tightly, its glow now pulsating in rhythm with his heartbeat. He hid it beneath his robe, casting a final glance at the pyramids, their ancient forms seemingly unchanged. But Ahmed knew better. Something monumental had just occurred, something that could unravel the very fabric of history. With the artifact hidden, he began his journey back to the village. His steps were slow, each one burdened by the weight of the unimaginable. The Watcher had seen the unthinkable, and his life, and perhaps the world, would never be the same. Ahmed returned to his modest home on the edge of the village, the glowing cube tucked securely beneath his robe. His hands trembled as he placed it on the worn table in his dimly lit study. The artifact emitted a faint, rhythmic glow, casting flickering patterns on the walls. Its presence felt alive, almost sentient. For decades, Ahmed had studied Egypt's ancient wonders, but this discovery defied everything he knew. The symbols etched into the cube's surface shifted subtly, their designs mesmerizing and impossible to pin down. Some resembled hieroglyphs, but others were entirely alien. His initial fear was now mingled with a burning curiosity. He pulled out his magnifying glass and a notebook, sketching the markings as best as he could. His trained eye noticed patterns that seemed intentional, mathematical even, but their purpose eluded him. As he worked, the artifact grew warmer, its glow intensifying. Suddenly, beams of light shot upward, projecting a constellation map into the air above it. Ahmed froze, his pen suspended mid-stroke. The constellations were familiar, yet distorted, as if viewed from a perspective far beyond Earth. He whispered to himself, "A map. But of what?" The creak of the door broke his concentration. Ahmed turned to see his granddaughter Layla standing there. A budding archaeologist, she had inherited his love for uncovering history's secrets. Her eyes widened at the sight of the glowing cube. "Grandfather," she said cautiously, "what is that?" Ahmed hesitated before gesturing for her to enter. "Something extraordinary," he replied. "I found it near the pyramids. Or perhaps it found me." Layla approached the artifact, her gaze fixed on its floating projections. "These symbols," she murmured, tracing her fingers over its surface. "They look ancient, but not Egyptian. What are they?" "I don't know," Ahmed admitted. "But it's communicating something. A map, perhaps a message. And if I'm right, it changes everything we know about our history." Layla's expression shifted from awe to concern. "If this is real, the implications are enormous. But we must be careful. If this falls into the wrong hands—" Ahmed nodded. "That's why we'll study it here, quietly. No one else can know. At least, not yet." Together they began poring over Ahmed's collection of ancient texts, comparing the artifact's symbols to hieroglyphs and star charts. Hours passed as they uncovered fragments of connections, but the full meaning remained elusive. The cube pulsed faintly as though aware of their efforts. As night fell, Ahmed and Layla were unaware they were being watched. Outside, a shadowy figure lingered at the edge of the village, their silhouette barely visible against the starlit dunes. Whoever they were, their presence signaled one thing: Ahmed's discovery had not gone unnoticed, and forces beyond their comprehension were already in motion. The desert air carried an unusual weight the next morning. Ahmed awoke to an uneasy stillness, his thoughts lingering on the artifact. A faint crunch of sand outside startled him. Through the window, he glimpsed a shadowy figure near the dunes, but before he could react, they disappeared. Layla arrived soon after, carrying ancient manuscripts from her university's archives. Her excitement contrasted sharply with Ahmed's unease. He ushered her inside quickly, glancing nervously at the horizon. "I think we are being watched," he said in a low voice. "Who could know?" Layla asked, setting the manuscripts down. "You've told no one, right?" Ahmed nodded but didn't reply. The artifact's presence felt like a beacon, drawing attention from forces he didn't understand. They worked diligently, comparing the artifact's glowing symbols to ancient texts. Fragments emerged, references to gifts from the gods and bridges to the stars. One scroll described a sacred object given to the pharaohs, a tool to communicate with celestial beings. The findings were extraordinary, but Ahmed's unease only deepened. By midday, the artifact reacted again. Its glow intensified, projecting constellations and geographic points into the air. Ahmed and Layla immediately recognized Giza among the locations, but others spanned continents and oceans, their significance a mystery. "This is a map," Layla said, awe in her voice. "It's showing more than Giza. These other points, what are they?" "Gateways," Ahmed murmured, the word slipping out as if placed in his mind. He didn't understand why, but it felt true. Their focus broke with a sharp knock at the door. Ahmed peeked cautiously. Two men stood outside, dressed in formal attire. "Dr. Ahmed," one of them called, "we've received reports of unusual activity near the pyramids. May we speak with you?" Ahmed's heart pounded. He opened the door slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said evenly. The men exchanged looks but left with a warning to report anything unusual. Once they were gone, Ahmed turned to Layla. "We have to leave," he said. "They'll be back." As dusk fell, they loaded the artifact and manuscripts into Layla's truck. Their destination was a remote excavation site she had been working on, far from prying eyes. The artifact pulsed faintly in Ahmed's lap, its glow soft but steady. The desert night stretched around them, dark and silent. Yet Ahmed couldn't shake the feeling of being followed. The whispers from the night before seemed carried on the wind, growing louder. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the dunes, and the artifact's hum deepened, resonating with something unseen. By the time they reached the site, Ahmed felt the weight of the discovery pressing harder than ever. This artifact was no ordinary relic. It was a key to something far greater. As Layla killed the engine, Ahmed clutched it tightly, feeling its warmth against his palms. Somewhere in the vast darkness, unseen eyes watched, and Ahmed knew their journey was only beginning. The excavation site was eerily quiet, its equipment long abandoned. Ahmed and Layla worked inside a large tent, the artifact glowing faintly on their makeshift table. The silence of the desert wrapped around them, broken only by the rustling wind. Layla pored over her notes, cross-referencing the artifact's shifting symbols. "This could take weeks," she murmured, though her determination never wavered. Ahmed nodded, but his unease grew. The artifact seemed almost alive, pulsing faintly as if in response to their efforts. By the second day, they translated fragments of the symbols into cryptic phrases. "Align the stars" appeared repeatedly, though its meaning remained elusive. Their progress was interrupted by a distant hum. Layla peered outside and gasped. A convoy of vehicles was approaching, dust billowing behind them. Ahmed's heart sank as he recognized the emblem on the lead vehicle, a government agency he'd clashed with during an old excavation. "They're here for the artifact," Ahmed said. "We need to hide it." Layla quickly wrapped the cube in cloth, burying it under excavation tools. Moments later, uniformed officials entered the tent. Their leader, a stern man with piercing eyes, introduced himself as Colonel Farouk. "We've received reports of unusual activity in this area," he said. "We need to inspect your findings." "This is a private excavation," Ahmed replied calmly. "We have permits." Farouk smirked. "Permits don't cover anomalies. Cooperate, and we won't escalate." As Farouk's men began their search, the artifact emitted a faint hum from its hiding place. One soldier paused, his head tilting as though he sensed it. Before he could investigate further, a shout came from outside. A cloaked figure moved at the edge of the camp with unnatural speed. Soldiers raised their weapons, but the figure vanished into the dunes as quickly as it appeared. Farouk barked orders, sending his men to secure the perimeter. Ahmed seized the moment. "Layla, we have to go." Under the cover of chaos, they retrieved the artifact and slipped out into the desert night. The moon cast long shadows as they hurried away, the artifact's glow hidden beneath Ahmed's robe. By dawn, they reached a remote canyon Layla knew from her explorations. Exhausted but relieved, they uncovered the artifact. Its glow reflected off the canyon walls, steady and pulsing. "Who was that figure?" Layla whispered. "I don't know," Ahmed replied, "but we're not the only ones who want this." The stillness of the canyon was stark against the storm of questions in their minds. The artifact's steady pulse seemed to promise answers, but Ahmed and Layla knew they were no longer just historians. They were fugitives, caught in forces far beyond their understanding. The canyon walls towered over Ahmed and Layla, shielding them from prying eyes. In this hidden enclave, they resumed their study of the artifact. Its glow illuminated the makeshift table, casting strange shadows that seemed alive. Layla sketched the artifact's shifting symbols, her brow furrowed in concentration. "These markings blend Egyptian hieroglyphs with something alien," she murmured. She pointed to a faint outline of a serpent coiled among stars on one side of the cube. Ahmed leaned closer. "The serpent. It's a symbol of transformation, a bridge between worlds in Egyptian mythology. This might explain why it's here." Layla nodded, flipping through her notes. "This motif appears across cultures, tied to celestial events or divine knowledge. But what's it trying to tell us?" As if in response, the artifact pulsed, and symbols projected into the air. They spiraled into a three-dimensional map that hovered above them. Ahmed's breath caught. This isn't just a map, it's a message. Layla reached toward the projection. As her fingers passed through it, energy rippled outward, and the canyon walls glowed faintly, resonating with the artifact. The projection shifted, pinpointing a location in the Sahara Desert. "This is where it wants us to go," Layla whispered. Ahmed hesitated. The Sahara was vast and perilous, but the artifact's light intensified as if urging them forward. Before they could plan, a low rumble echoed through the canyon. Ahmed and Layla froze as a shadow moved at the canyon's entrance. "Someone's here," Ahmed hissed, clutching the artifact. Layla extinguished their lantern, plunging them into near darkness. The artifact's glow was their only light as they pressed against the canyon wall, holding their breath. Footsteps approached, deliberate and unhurried, as if their pursuer already knew their location. "We can't stay," Ahmed whispered. They crept along the canyon floor, each step careful and silent. The footsteps quickened and a chill ran down Ahmed's spine. They reached a narrow exit just as a flash of light lit the canyon behind them. Ahmed turned to see the cloaked figure raise a glowing device. The artifact vibrated violently in response. "Run!" Layla shouted. They bolted into the open desert, the cool night air stinging their faces. The ground trembled as a deep rumble followed them. Ahmed glanced back to see the figure standing at the canyon's edge, watching but making no move to follow. When they finally collapsed onto the sand, gasping for breath, the artifact's glow had dimmed, its pulsing slow and steady. "What was that?" Layla asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Ahmed admitted. "But whoever they weren't after us. They wanted this." He held up the artifact, its surface cool but unyielding. Layla stared at it, her determination unshaken. "If this is guiding us, we have to follow. Whatever's in the Sahara is the next piece of the puzzle." Ahmed nodded reluctantly, the weight of their journey pressing heavier than ever. The artifact's secrets beckoned, but so did the unknown dangers ahead. Ahmed and Layla set off before dawn, the desert stretching endlessly ahead of them. The artifact pulsed steadily in its case, its glow seeming to guide them even as the rising sun turned the sands golden. The coordinates it had revealed were deep within the Sahara, far from any known landmarks. Hours passed, the landscape growing harsher and more desolate. "This place feels untouched," Layla murmured as she maneuvered the truck over uneven terrain. "Like no one's been here in centuries." "Or longer," Ahmed replied, his gaze fixed on the horizon. The artifact pulsed again, its rhythm quickening. By late afternoon, the shifting dunes gave way to jagged rock formations. At the center of this barren expanse, partially buried in sand, was a circular stone structure. Its surface was carved with symbols identical to those on the artifact. Layla stopped the truck, and they approached cautiously. "This must be it," she said, her voice hushed. Ahmed ran his fingers over the carvings, his heart racing. "This looks like an ancient gateway." The artifact's pulsing intensified as Ahmed placed it on a pedestal at the center of the structure. It clicked into place, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. A beam of light shot upward, forming a swirling vortex of energy above them. Layla stepped back, shielding her eyes. "What did you do?" "I think it's activating," Ahmed said, his voice trembling. The vortex stabilized, revealing glimpses of otherworldly landscapes, towering crystalline cities, skies illuminated by twin suns, and beings with elongated forms. Then the images shifted to something recognizable. The Pyramids of Giza, pristine and gleaming under an ancient sun. Tall, elegant figures moved among them, their motions purposeful and deliberate. "It's showing us the past," Layla whispered, "or an alternate version of it." Ahmed's breath caught. The pyramids weren't just tombs, they were bridges, connections to something far greater. As they watched, the portal's energy surged, and the artifact emitted a piercing tone. The images dissolved into rapidly shifting constellations. A deep, resonant voice echoed from the vortex, speaking in a language neither could understand. The sound was both haunting and mesmerizing, as if the universe itself were addressing them. "We need to leave," Layla urged, grabbing Ahmed's arm. "No, it's trying to tell us something," Ahmed insisted. "We have to listen." The voice grew urgent, the constellations aligning into patterns that resembled maps. The portal's energy became unstable, pulling inward. The artifact vibrated violently, and with a final pulse of light, the vortex collapsed. The portal was gone, leaving only silence. Ahmed picked up the artifact, now dull and inert. "It was a warning," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "about something coming." Layla stared at the now quiet structure. If this was a warning, then we're part of it now. They loaded the artifact into the truck and drove away, the weight of their discovery pressing heavily on them. Ahmed glanced back at the structure, its presence both ominous and awe-inspiring. Though the portal had closed, its cryptic message lingered, a call to action that neither of them could ignore. The drive back to Cairo was tense. The artifact, now dormant, sat between Ahmed and Layla like a silent reminder of the portal's warning. Neither spoke, lost in their thoughts as the sun set over the desert. When they reached the outskirts of the city, it was clear that the world had already begun to change. Headlines plastered on newsstands screamed of unexplained lights over Giza and theories of alien visitations. Crowds gathered near the pyramids, demanding answers from authorities who had none. "We're too late," Layla said, watching the chaos. "The world knows something's happening." Ahmed nodded. "And it's only the beginning." They retreated to Layla's university lab, a quiet sanctuary. Even there, tension filled the air. Professors whispered in corners, students huddled around screens showing strange phenomena, magnetic disruptions, eerie auroras, and more. Layla secured the artifact in a steel case and turned to Ahmed. "We need to understand the portal's warning." For days, they worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of notes and symbols. The patterns revealed references to celestial alignments and a cryptic term, the return. But what, or who, was returning? A sharp knock at the door interrupted them. Layla opened it cautiously, revealing a young journalist with a pale, urgent expression. "Dr. Ahmed, Dr. Layla," he said, clutching a notepad. "I know you've seen something." Layla hesitated, but Ahmed asked, "What do you mean?" "I've been following the events at Giza," the journalist continued. "There are people, powerful ones, who believe the pyramids are tied to something ancient. They're searching for what they call the key." Layla's blood ran cold. "The key?" The journalist nodded. "A device that connects to them, the visitors, aliens, gods, whatever they are. They believe it's linked to a return." Ahmed exchanged a glance with Layla. The portal's visions and the artifact's behavior made sense now. "We need to move the artifact," he said. "If they're searching for it, we can't let them find it." The journalist nodded. "They'll stop at nothing. Be careful." That night, Ahmed and Layla left the city under cover of darkness, heading to an old excavation site Ahmed had worked on years ago. The site was remote, hidden, and safe, for now. But the world wasn't waiting for them to uncover the truth. Reports flooded in. Lights over cities, strange energy surges, and sightings of beings that defied explanation. Panic rippled across the globe. In the quiet desert, Ahmed and Layla unpacked the artifact. Its faint glow returned, pulsing in rhythm with the stars above. "It's waking up again," Ahmed said. Layla nodded. "Whatever's coming, it's happening faster than we thought." Ahmed looked up at the night sky. The stars seemed closer, brighter, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. The artifact pulsed once more, its light illuminating their faces. The warning wasn't just for them, it was for all of humanity. Ahmed and Layla arrived at a cave system Ahmed had studied years ago but never fully explored. The artifact's glow intensified as they approached, guiding them to the hidden entrance concealed by sand and rock. "This is it," Ahmed whispered, his voice trembling. Inside, the air grew cooler, and the narrow passage soon revealed carvings on the walls, ancient hieroglyphs mixed with alien symbols identical to those on the artifact. "These tell a story," Layla said, her voice hushed. "A connection between Earth and somewhere else." Ahmed nodded, his fingers brushing the carvings. "It's as if our ancestors were taught, guided by beings far beyond their understanding." The passage opened into a vast chamber, its walls adorned with murals of humans and celestial beings working together. At the center stood a massive stone altar engraved with constellations. The artifact pulsed brightly as Ahmed placed it on the altar, and the room filled with a low hum. The carvings lit up, and a beam of light shot upward, forming a map of Earth overlaid with glowing markers. "These are the other locations," Layla said, pointing. "There's more than one site like this." The ground trembled, and a hidden passage opened in the wall. They followed it cautiously, their lantern casting flickering shadows. The narrow corridor led to a smaller room, where a metallic sphere rested on a pedestal. Its surface shimmered with energy. "This isn't just an artifact," Layla whispered. "It's a key." Ahmed stepped closer, his heart pounding. A key to what? Before they could investigate further, the chamber filled with a deep, resonant sound. The artifact on the altar vibrated violently, and the glowing carving shifted into a warning. Layla translated in a shaky voice. "The gate opens only once. Beware the Watchers." Footsteps echoed from the main chamber. "We're not alone," Ahmed whispered, extinguishing the lantern. Shadows danced on the walls as figures entered, their voices speaking in an unfamiliar language. One raised a device that emitted a piercing light, illuminating the chamber. Layla gripped Ahmed's arm. "We need to go. Now." The artifact pulsed again, drawing the intruder's attention. Ahmed grabbed the sphere and they bolted through the narrow passage. Behind them, footsteps and shouts grew louder as their pursuers gave chase. The tunnel seemed endless, but finally they emerged into the open desert. As they stumbled into the cool night air, the artifact's glow dimmed, and the cave entrance sealed behind them, as if protecting its secrets. Layla collapsed onto the sand, her breath ragged. She stared at the sphere in Ahmed's hands. "We have the key," she said, her voice shaking. "But what does it unlock?" Ahmed looked back at the sealed cave, his expression grim. Something powerful, something dangerous. Above them, the stars seemed to shimmer with an unnatural intensity, as though the universe itself were watching. The answers lay ahead, but so did unimaginable risks. Ahmed and Layla arrived at a remote plateau, guided by the artifact's increasing glow. The flat expanse of stone seemed barren, yet the air felt charged with energy. "This is it," Ahmed said, setting the artifact on the ground. As the sun rose, a beam of light shot upward from the artifact, revealing glowing lines etched into the plateau's surface. The patterns formed a massive circular doorway. "A gateway," Ahmed whispered. The metallic sphere in Layla's hands began to hum, floating out of her grasp into the center of the gateway. The ground trembled and the doorway slid open, revealing a descending tunnel. Layla lit a lantern, her hands shaking. "Do we go in?" Ahmed nodded. "We've come too far to turn back." The tunnel walls glowed faintly with symbols that pulsed in time with the artifact. The air grew cooler as they descended, and the hum of the artifact became steady. The passage opened into an enormous chamber filled with crystalline machinery that defied comprehension. Streams of light connected towering structures, casting eerie reflections across the room. At the center stood a massive obelisk, its surface covered in symbols. Ahmed approached, the artifact in his hand growing warm. When he placed it on the obelisk, the chamber lit up, and the symbols rearranged themselves into images and words they could understand. The obelisk spoke of the First Ones, an ancient race that seeded life across the galaxy. Earth, it revealed, was a nexus, a chosen world connecting civilizations. The pyramids and temples were part of a vast network designed to link humanity to a greater cosmic order. They were guiding us, Ahmed murmured, preparing us for something. The images shifted, revealing a shadowy force, an interstellar threat. The First Ones had left but warned of its return. The gateways were not just connections, they were defenses, capable of shielding planets or summoning help. Layla's voice was tight. This is what the portal warned about. They knew it was coming. The artifact emitted a low tone, and the images faded. The obelisk's light dimmed, its message complete. Ahmed turned to Layla. We have the knowledge, but how do we use it? Before she could answer, the tunnel behind them rumbled. Shadows appeared at the entrance, figures in dark robes, their intent clear. They found us, Ahmed said. We need to go. Grabbing the artifact and the sphere, they sprinted toward a secondary exit revealed by the obelisk. The chamber shook violently, machinery flickering as debris rained down. They escaped just as the tunnel collapsed behind them. Outside, they stood under the open sky, gasping for breath. The artifact's glow was faint, but its message burned in their minds. Humanity's past was entwined with forces far beyond their understanding, and its future depended on their actions. Layla stared at the horizon, where storm clouds loomed. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Ahmed nodded, clutching the artifact tightly. We've been warned. Now we have to act. As the wind picked up, the first drops of rain fell, signaling the final confrontation was near. The storm raged as Ahmed and Layla stood on the brink of the unknown. The artifact glowed brighter, its rhythm matching the storm's fury. This is it, Layla said. Whatever's coming, it's here. A beam of light shot skyward from the artifact, and figures appeared on the horizon, cloaked beings moving with inhuman precision. They surrounded Ahmed and Layla, one stepping forward. We are the Watchers, the figure said, its voice echoing in their minds. You hold the key. Ahmed steadied himself. If you're guardians, why pursue us? We're trying to protect humanity. The Watcher's tone was grave. The key awakens only in times of peril. The threat is near. Act or face annihilation. The artifact and sphere floated, spinning as symbols projected into the air. A map of Earth appeared, with one marker at Giza glowing brighter than the rest. The central gateway, the Watcher explained. It must be activated to repel the threat, but once opened, it cannot be closed. Layla's voice wavered. And if we fail? The Watcher's reply was chilling. Failure means extinction. The figures vanished, leaving Ahmed and Layla alone under the storm. Without hesitation, they drove toward Giza, the artifact glowing fiercely. When they arrived, crowds had gathered, their fear evident as lights danced across the sky. Ahmed placed the artifact at the pyramid's base, where it fit into a hidden compartment revealed by the sphere. The ground shook as beams of light shot into the heavens, forming a swirling vortex. From it emerged crystalline ships, vessels of the First Ones. The crowd gasped as the realization spread. Help had arrived. The shadow of the threat loomed, vast and foreboding. The First Ones' ships moved into formation, their energy weapons carving through the darkness in a battle beyond comprehension. The skies erupted with light as humanity's protectors fought to repel the invader. The artifact began to emit a final sequence of pulses, sending shockwaves through the air. Ahmed and Layla stood at the edge of the battle, feeling the immense power of the event ripple through them. Above, the sky turned into a kaleidoscope of light and shadow as the first ones fought the encroaching darkness with unmatched precision. As dawn broke, the shadow dissolved, leaving the sky clear and Earth untouched. The artifact lay dormant, its mission complete. Layla turned to Ahmed, her voice filled with relief. "We did it. Humanity has a chance." Ahmed nodded, his gaze steady. "The first ones trusted us. We can't forget what happened here." The first ones' ships vanished, and the pyramids returned to their silent watch. Ahmed and Layla knew their journey was over, but the knowledge they carried would shape humanity's future. They vowed to safeguard the artifact, knowing its power and the message it bore. Above them, the stars shone brightly, a quiet acknowledgement of Earth's place in the cosmos. Humanity had passed its test, but Ahmed and Layla understood one truth. Vigilance would be the key to the planet's survival in the ages to come.